Bibles ready, we are going to the book of Numbers. Back to the book of Numbers, chapter 13. For the reading of the word, I'm just going to read verse 33. But I want you to follow along with me, starting in verse 1 and 2, and then we're going to jump to verse 26. Numbers chapter 13, verses 1 and 2, then verses 26 through 33, coming from the New King James Version. So, going to this key verse on today, the soldiers, the leaders of Israel have come back to Moses and are giving their report. And here's what they had to report on the promised land. This is what they had to say about the promised land. There we saw the giants, the descendants of Anak, come from the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. I want you to pay really close attention to that, because that is key. We were as grasshoppers in our own sight, and grasshoppers in their sight. By the help of the Holy Spirit today, we just like to use for our fall, don't let doubt disqualify you. We're getting rid of some bad habits in quarantine, so don't let doubt disqualify you. A man was at work one day, and he was pretty good at his job, but he started to feel a little tired, a little agitated, a little uninterested, unimpressed, a little demotivated at work. So he really started to think, what is going to be the next step in my career? He just aspired for some new challenge in his job. So he started to search online and started looking at his internal company website and found a job, and he found one that he might be interested in as a manager. So he looked at the responsibilities and he said, I can do that. That looks good. I can take on that challenge. That looks like something that would be interesting to me. He had most of the skills to accept the position, but he would need to learn and develop a few more skills that he had not yet acquired, but yet and still he didn't let that discourage him. So then he started to scroll down and looking at the job description, and he looked at the qualifications, and then he started to see some things that kind of troubled him a little bit. They want someone with managerial experience. He didn't have any. They wanted someone with at least 10 years of work experience. He only had 5. They wanted someone with a master's degree, but he only had his bachelor's. They wanted someone who was willing to relocate. He was stable, just right where he was. The excitement that built in him slowly started to trickle and dwindle away and turn into doubt as he looked at the qualifications and he felt unqualified. It was a sobering moment for him until he scrolled all the way to the very bottom of the screen and he saw something that caught his eye, and it started to boost his confidence. I'll tell you what that is in a second. He filled out the application, uploaded his resume, and after much prayer and consideration, he clicked the submit button. Days went by, then weeks, then months, and he did not hear anything back until one day he got a phone call and heard a familiar voice on the other side. The voice on the other end said, I received your application and I've reviewed your resume. And I saw that you did not have the work experience for the job. I saw that you had no managerial experience for the job. I saw that you only had a bachelor's degree. We're looking for someone with a master's. So what made you, what possessed you to post for this position? The man replied, because for all the reasons I did not qualify. I saw your name and I realized that you knew me and I knew you. See, what we did not know about the story is that on day one, they met each other in the training class. They went through the process of training together. They studied over the phone. They got to know each other, built a friendship and a connection. And he says, I'm not trying to use your relationship, the relationship that we have, to get ahead in my career. But I knew that our connection would at least motivate you to think of me enough to give me a phone call. And sometimes in life, we have opportunities staring us right in the face. We never seek the opportunities because we feel that we are not qualified for the positions. Not enough education, disqualified. Not enough experience, disqualified. I don't have the skills, I'm disqualified. The time isn't quite right, disqualified. I'm not ready to move, I'm disqualified. Let's get personal with this. I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, I've been disqualified. My skin is not the right color, disqualified. I didn't have the right upbringing, I've been disqualified. I did not grow up in church, I'm disqualified. But when you know someone who is able to qualify the disqualified, someone who's able to approve the disapproved, someone who's able to accept the unacceptable, someone who's able to make the impossible possible, someone who is able to do anything above all you can ask or think. If you don't know who I'm talking about the one who is able to give you the strength to slay the giants in your life. I'm talking about the one who's able to give you the strength to move a mountain. I'm talking about the one who's able to give you the victories over your enemies. I'm talking about the one who's able to move any obstacle out of the way in your life. I'm talking about the one who's able to provide for you when you're down to your last dime. I'm talking about the one who was able to hang, bleed, and die on a cross for your sins and my sins. I'm talking about the one who was able to get out of a grave with all power in his hand. I'm talking about Jesus. You ought to like that if you know what I'm talking about. The one who's able to do it all. Your relationship with God can give you access to the promises that he has in store for you. But don't allow your doubts to disqualify you from his blessings. Don't allow your doubts to disqualify you from his blessings. Let's look at this. The children of Israel at it again, and God commands Moses to get a sneak peek of the land. Go get a preview of the land that he's promised them that they would receive. He sends 12 spies. Look at verses 1 and 2. He sends 12 spies. These spies are not regular spies. They're leaders from each of the tribes of Israel to go to Canaan and go there for 40 days and just check it out and survey the land. And his command is really simple. Just let me know if the land is good or if the land is bad, and bring me back some fruit. Now notice in verses 1 and 2 that a leader from each tribe is included, which means by extension, everyone connected to those leaders can partake in the promise. Don't forget, we have 2 million to 2.5 million people that are connected to the 12. And because they're connected to the 12, they're connected to Moses. Moses is connected to God. They are all partakers in the promises that God has in store for them. All they have to do is come back in 40 days, tell me what you see, and show me a little bit of evidence. So after 40 days, the 12 come back with a report. They come back with some fruit. They come back from the promised land. And in verse 27, it is everything they thought that it would be and more. It says, then they told him, they said, we went to the land you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. So they go there and they're able to bring back some milk. They're able to see the milk that flows, the sustenance, the provision that flows. They're able to see the honey, which means it's a healthy land. It's something that's good. They're able to bring back some of the delicious fruits that they see. Everything that they bring back, if you look at it all together, it's all good. It just puts it out there and says, what we saw out there looked good. But then in verse 28, they stop talking about the blessings and they start talking about the barriers around their blessings. They stop talking about their blessings and they start focusing on the barrier around their blessings. Have you ever had your blessing in sight? Is there anybody that's ever had an opportunity staring you right in the face, looking at you? Your promise is in your hand, but then you talk yourself out of it? I'm not preaching on prosperity today. I'm just teaching on promises on today. Jesus says, I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. The promises. But then you say, I don't deserve it. You talk your way out of it. A man that finds a wife finds a good thing. But then you say, maybe I'm not good enough. You talk your way out of your promises. He will give you a peace that surpasses all understanding. But then you say, my life is just too chaotic to really have that kind of peace. You talk your way out of your promises. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. But then your enemy brought out the big guns. You start to think and talk your way out of your blessing. See, when you start focusing on the barrier instead of the blessing, you can impede the possession of your promises. When we see that all 12 of the spies, we see all 12 of the spies. We see 12 spies, but we see that two, all of them but two, see that the obstacles are just too overwhelming to overcome. So you got 10 spies looking at the barrier. You've got two men, Caleb and Joshua, looking at the plenty, looking at the promise. Only Caleb and Joshua disagree and cannot believe what they were hearing. You look at verse 30, Caleb goes so far to say, then Caleb quieted the people before Moses said, hey, Moses, just wait a minute. He said, let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well to overcome it. Look at what he says. He said, let us go up at once. He says, what are we waiting for? He says, and take possession of it. He says, God promised it to us. Let's go take it. Then he says, for we are well to overcome it. I believe that God will deliver. He delivered for us once. He'll deliver it for us again because he said he would. That's what Caleb comes out and says. But then in verse 31, the other 10, verse 31, they come out and they say, we are not able. We are not able. They say, why take the risk? They say, we're not able to go up against the people. They say, God's promise isn't worth it. Then they say, for they are stronger than we. God is going to probably let us down. Oh, do you see the contrast? Do you see the tension right there in the text? Caleb is all for it. Let's do it. God is with us. But then you have this other group that's against him, the 10 that are going against him. 2 against 10. 2 say we can do it. 10 say no, we can't. They are outnumbered 5 to 1 if you look at that ratio. And sometimes you will find yourself in situations where people will try to drown out your dreams with their doubts. 10 voices can be a lot louder than 2 voices. Kind of reminds me of a choir. Now, I don't know about your choir, but I've been around choirs long enough to know that there's always been this ratio of more altos, more mid-range singers, to sopranos, the more of the high-range singers. And those altos, they always show up in force. Sister Jones, you know what I'm talking about? They can make the walls shake with their sound. They come out and just blow, 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 and they can really make a lot of noise. But even with just a handful of sopranos, they still shine in the choir because their pitch, their notes, their octaves are higher. They are uplifted. They are elevated. And all I'm trying to tell you is sometimes you will run up on some people that will see the glass as half empty when you see the glass as half full. They might outweigh you, outnumber you, and try to overpower you, but don't stop singing that higher note. Don't stop elevating yourself to a higher mindset. Don't stop showing your uplifted spirit when others try to drown your dreams with their doubt. Let them know that God said we can have it. God said he would give it to us because we need to go and get it right now because I know that he is able to provide it for us. We serve an able God. God does not want to hear your doubts. He wants you to know that I promised it to you. And God does not go back on his promises. God does not renege what he says he's going to do. God doesn't just give up and just say, no, I changed my mind. That's not the way that God operates. God keeps his promises. So they're all, 12 of them, given the promise. But only a few of them believe that they can actually take possession of it. Then in verse 32, the 10 go out and they give everyone a bad report. Then watch what they tell the people. Verse 32, and they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people whom we saw are men of great stature. Verse 33, there we saw the giants. The descendants of Anak came from the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. First thing I'm going to tell you is you have to be careful what you allow people to put into your ear. You have to be careful about what you allow people to drop into your soul. Bad reports tend to spread like cancer. Don't believe me? Just watch the news sometimes. Open up Facebook. Just go to your news feed. All it took was for one person, one media outlet to say Asian murder hornets this week. And the world started to lose it at the fact that there might be Asian murder hornets in America. Last time I checked, there were still people living in Asia. They haven't all been murdered by hornets the last time I checked. Bad news. It spreads like cancer. And it's usually worse when it's peppered with pessimism. You see, sometimes the bad news gets seasoned with cynicism. They put a little something on top, put some sauce on it, some cynical sauce on it, and then it makes it sound a lot worse than what it really is. The 10 have compared themselves to the giants. They said they were like giants. The tribe of Anak, the people of Anak, were like giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight. Watch that. Watch that. We were like grasshoppers in our own sight. Stop allowing small-minded people to put seeds of doubt into your spirit. People will try to pull you down to their level and convince you that you are just as small as they are. They took one look at themselves. They took a look at themselves and they were afraid. They were fearful. They were doubtful. We can't do it. They took one look at themselves, and all they saw were insects. Like, all they could see when they looked at themselves was, we are like insects. We are like something that you step on. We are like something that you swat away. We are nothing. We are insignificant compared to the giants that dwell in the land which we've been promised. Low self-worth, low self-esteem, low self-confidence. Truth be told, some of us have been in these same low places in life. You might be in a low place right now, wherever you are. Struggling right now, feeling like your situation is bigger than you are. You're feeling overwhelmed because your obstacles are stronger than you. You're feeling depressed because you feel like your barriers are greater than you are. But stop looking at yourself like an insect. Stop looking at yourself like a grasshopper. And start seeing your way the way that God sees you. How does God look at us? God knows the plans that he has for you, to give you a future and a hope. That is what you need to believe. God said, I'm with you. Be not dismayed. I am God and I will strengthen you. That's the promise God has for you. God said, I will make your enemy your footstool. That's the promise that God has for you. God did not give you a spirit of fear, but a power of love and a sound mind. That is the promise that God has for you. God says, wait on me and renew your strength. You will mount up on wings as eagles. You will run and not be weary, and you will walk and not faint. You just need to believe that God has for you. Don't let your pessimistic perspectives prevent you from receiving the promises of God. The children of Israel, they were promised some land. They were promised some good land. Land that had good fruit. Land that flowed with milk. Land that flowed with honey. Land that could sustain them for generations. It was theirs to go and possess, but because of the pessimistic perspective of the people, the fear, the doubt, the I can't do it attitude, God had to do away with some doubters. And they would never receive their inheritance. But there were a faithful few that God said, I have big things in store for you, and right now your heart is ready to receive them. God has some big things in store for the children of Israel, for those who are ready to go and take it. God said in the word that he was going to have to remove an entire generation so that the next generation could go in with the right heart, with the right spirit, ready to possess what he had. He had to keep his promise because God doesn't break them. But how many people know that God has some big things in store for you too? God has some big blessings waiting for you to take possession of. But there may be some big obstacles that stand between you and your blessings. The obstacles may be big. But let me tell you something today. God is much bigger. The obstacles may be strong in front of you, but God is still much stronger. The obstacles may be great, but my God that I serve is a great God. Don't worry about what other people say and try to drop into your spirit. Just let them know that my God is great. They said that you would never amount to anything, but just let them know that my God is great. They said that you were worthless, but tell them that my God is great. They said that you were caught up in a generational curse, but let them know that my God is great. They said that you weren't smart enough to make it to school, but let them know that my God is great. They said he said that you didn't look good enough for him, but just let him know that my God is great. She said you didn't have enough money for me, but let them know that my God is great. Now, Gilead, they said that your church was not going to make it, but you ought to tell somebody that our God is great. They said that too much damage has already been done, but let them know that my God, our God, the God that we serve is great. They said we wouldn't survive, but my God is great. You ought to just hit that like button and speak life over yourself. You ought to speak blessings over yourself. You ought to speak peace over yourself and let somebody know that my God is great. Speak his promises over yourself. Don't let doubt get in the way of what God has in store for you. Change your attitude from one of doubt to one of believing. All you have to do is have faith that God can do it. If he can bring you through it, then he can take you to it. Just believe that your God is great. You ought to encourage yourself right now and give God some praise right now wherever you are, and let everybody know, let the world know that your God is great. Don't focus on the barriers. The barriers, looking at the barriers, will disqualify you. It'll prevent you from being able to see the promises that God has for you and just for you.